you, Danny, Liz. It was good to have Roger and Sue with us this morning. You don't play a musical instrument. Take what Andrew did, took a lot of courage. He must be very, feel comfortable with you. And he did a great job. So, learning to play the guitar at his age. There's a little girl, you see her on YouTube, her name is Anke, A-N-K-E. Can't remember her last name. She's a little Asian girl, or she looks like of Asian descent. I believe she said she was from Philadelphia when she was interviewed, from Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, or something like that. But started seeing videos of her when she was 5 or 6 years old, and she just, Bach and Beethoven, she just plays the piano. She's a prodigy, just amazing, amazing. I enjoy music. I enjoy more watching people who seem to do so well at it. So I'm glad to have them here this morning. Let's see, we are in Romans 1. Take verse 18 up to. Remember that here in the book of Romans, Paul is saying it appears that he determined to lay out a very technical and specific explanation about our salvation. The workings of it, the pieces and parts. What it means to be saved. We talk about salvation. And he gets through with the introduction and kind of the niceties. He says, I hope to be coming, I've heard about your faith. I hope to be coming to Rome soon. Of course he was. And they said, I was really looking forward to having a chance to bear fruit there where you are too. I hope that you look at opportunities to go somewhere, to be somewhere, or to take a trip as an opportunity to go and to see what of you can leave behind, what that God has done in your life you might be able to contribute when you get there. On my bucket list, I have a very good friend who lives in Guangdong, China. And we swap emails every week. I haven't seen him in a very long time. But I'd like to go to China. I'd like to go there and see what I've never been there before. I'd like to go there and see what God might be able to do there through me. Maybe I'll get to go before I get past going, as they say. And so he launches in to his message. And he's still going to be talking about salvation. And he breaks it down. He uses all of the technical, theological terminology. What we believe is, in many regards, quite simple, and it's more about a relationship with God, being a member of the family of God. But Paul here says it's got to. I don't have my noise on, do you? I see you wandering about as if you don't know where you're going, but you look for. I would never accuse you of being that way, so I knew you had a method or a purpose. And I thought of that before I stood up over there and then left my mind completely. Thank you. Thank you. This will help you hear me a little more clearly, perhaps. Maybe I'll say something worth hearing. You and I would go to the light switch, we turn, flip the switch, and the light comes on. We know that there are very, very difficult, if you were going to, there's no way in the world I can use that, but there's no way I could go back in time to those who created or who discovered electricity or created the incandescent light bulb and tell them how it works. How does it work? Well, you flip a switch and it comes on. Not helpful at all. But it's important to know some of the pieces. And one of the things here, he starts out talking about the wrath of God. Look at verse 18. The wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men, who hold the truth in unrighteousness. And so here's the contention. It says, it's not that people don't know better. It's not that we don't know the truth. It's not that we are lacking in what we need to know and see. It's not like we're a bunch of people and we have no knowledge. We don't have any wisdom. We don't have any information. We're not educated. He says we're holding the truth. But he says that we're holding the truth in unrighteousness. And here's one of the words that he's going to use a lot. He's going to use the word righteous and righteousness. Righteousness is the Greek word dikaiosune. It means to be together with, or to be right with. Together is like we're in agreement. It's we don't use the word righteous very much. But it just simply means, this is the way it's supposed to be. It's right. This is right. Righteous is to be right. This is the way it was intended to be. This is the way it was supposed to be. And when we see this word in the Bible, it's the way God intended for it to be. It's not just the way it naturally it just was supposed to be. If anything is the way it's supposed to be, it's the way God created it to be. The unrighteousness of men. I want to, as the Lord allows, and it'll be around the first of the year, but we're going to talk about the nature of something's wrong. Something's not right. How did humanity get off track? How did, sometimes, and what he's saying here is that people look at things, and we can look at anything around the world. A lot of people say, how could there possibly be a God with this? Here's this, and you say that this exists, this activity exists, this happens. This is something that exists. This is something that people do. This is something that we see in the world today. And yet you say there's a God of love. And God says, I didn't make it like that. That's not what I created. There's the unrighteousness of men. We got off track almost immediately. We began intentionally, purposefully doing things that were contrary, that were forbidden, things that unallowed, that were not right. We seem to be drawn, and it's not just that we could say it's our sinful nature, it's our lostness, but Adam and Eve were drawn to that forbidden fruit. It was just something about it. It was their curiosity, their desire, their thinking and their thoughts and their desire. It was a part of what was divine in them. God is someone who is creative, and He is zealous, and we can see by what He made and what He created that His imagination it sparkles and fires and explodes. I'm almost sure that I don't think that God created Adam and Eve and then Eve said, I'm hungry. What's to eat? I think there's a possibility they may have lived in the Garden of Eden for a very long time. I don't know. The Bible doesn't say. I really don't want to believe that this temptation of the serpent of Eve, that was kind of a struggle. And there was lots to see, and there were lots of things to do, and there were many experiences, and there were things to try, and there was a wonderful creation all around them, and they were in a garden. I don't know how long it took, but after a while, there was only one thing that seemed worth doing. There was only one thing that they could think about. There's only one. I know that feeling. It's that sign that says wet paint. Makes you want to touch it. It says don't stop. And even before we fell, before we were expelled from the garden, even before we sinned, I think there was something about don't that made us want to, just simply because we were created in the image of God. That's not a fault and a flaw. It can lead us astray. We can follow that in the wrong direction. Because you see, God gave us freedom of will and choice. The ability to make up our mind, to decide, to choose. We were free. So we began to, there's a part of that. You know, I always think that when the serpent was saying, if you eat this fruit, the reason God told you not to eat this fruit is because he's afraid if you eat this fruit, you'll become like God. You'll become like God. The King James Version said you'll be as gods. And it is the translation of the Hebrew word Elohim. It's a plural, but it's the same word that's used in Genesis 1:1. Elohim. Bereshit bara Elohim hashemayim va'et haaretz. In the beginning, God, and it's a plural of majesty. But it's the same word that's used there. The serpent was saying, if you eat that, you'll become like God. And I know what Eve was thinking. I believe I do. It doesn't say. I can't read her mind, and I'm just guessing. I might be wrong. Satan said, or the serpent said, you'll be like God. And I know that Eve was thinking, I'm already like God. I'm already like God. I don't have to eat anything to be like God. I'm created in his image. I'm like God. That's what he said. Let us make man in our image after our likeness. You'll be like God. And they're saying, I am like God. I don't have to do anything. I have to eat this fruit to be like God. I'm like God. And I think that that's the basis of my sin. I'm always, when I sin, I'm playing God. I'm exercising my own deity. I'm saying, you sit over here and let me be God for just a minute. Every sin, I believe, is saying, no, you said not to do that, but I want to do it, and I'm overruling you. I'm vetoing. And so we're saying, you and I are equal. Is that what we're saying? No, when I sin, I'm saying that I'm superior to God. There is what you want, but here's what I want, and it's better. It's bigger. It's more important. Why else, then, would we do something that's contrary to the will of God? Unless we think like that. Look at the nature of sin. What is sin? What is... And no, you can't... You know, it's like if right now if there was someone at our house and they were pulling out all the drawers and turning out all the cabinets and let's put this entertainment center up before we go. You know, they might just make a mess and just tear stuff off the wall and knock things down. And then I would say, let's all go over to our house. And we went over there and you walked in and you'd look at me and say, your wife's not a very good housekeeper, is she? Of course, Terry might walk in and not notice that anything was wrong. Just kind of walk in. It kind of looks like the holidays. Now I love our home. I wouldn't change anything. But both of us, We get to along about Halloween where we just come in, and I can't even remember seeing the dining room table in a long time, because it's right there inside the door, and you just pile all your stuff right there. And there's stuff there. Terry recently found a really nice deal on a large flat screen television.
Joy actually.
We'll be able to sit in the living room and watch TV like this. It's just huge. And today I heard her say, I think the remote control of that TV is on the dining room table. And I said, well, yeah, we'll just have to go buy one of those remote controls that we can program. Henry, if you ever needed a tool and you knew you had one, but you just went and bought one, let's go down to Lowe's, maybe I can just buy one. You ever do that? Yeah, I got 12 of those, and I don't know where I thought, let's just go buy one. That's a lot easier. Come into a house that's been ransacked by thieves and say, well, your wife's not a very good housekeeper. People say, look at the mess that the world's in. You say that there's a God, and God's going to say, hey, come on. That ain't fair. I've been letting you do. And we're going to see that 3 times in Romans chapter 1. 3 different times use the same kind of phraseology where it kind of sounds like God said, I'll let them do what they chose to do. I gave them over. I gave up. I got out of the way. They said, they just kept saying, leave us alone. And God said, all right. Let me make this point because it's kind of where I want to begin. Verse 18, the wrath of God. Wrath of God. Salvation. Let me say something to you that I believed this for a long time. And after Hurricane Katrina came, one of the pastors that our association helped rebuild his church, he came up and to say thank you to our disaster relief team, to our association, to many of our church people here. And he was going to preach for us, a young man, and his church had just literally been destroyed, just wiped off the earth. And he delivered a message that really wasn't about hurricanes or thank you or anything. But he made a statement, and just as soon as he said, I didn't hear anything else he said. Because he just, man. Let me say it to you, and you think about it. Don't let it just, don't eject it just immediately. You don't have to take it in and wrap your arms around it, but I mean, I want to make a point that he made that day that it found a resting place. It found a spot in my mind and in my heart. Said, yeah, that's it right there. That's it. He said something right there. Here it is. All salvation, every aspect of salvation. When we talk about being saved, I'm saved. Are you saved? Jesus saves. All salvation is being saved from God. Salvation is being saved from God. From the wrath of God. The wrath of God is what's hanging out there over us. It is what awaits the wicked and unrighteousness of men. Judgment, final judgment or daily judgment, is the wrath of God. Now, you see, if you approach a sinner or a lost person or an unsaved person, and you try to tell him that what God wants to do is save you from your sin. Does he want to be saved from his sin? Most people really like their sin. I mean, sin can have destructive consequences, but I found when people are engaging in sinfulness that is literally destroying their life and their family and everything around them, they still love it. They love their sin. They really don't want to be saved from it. Now, people want to be saved from the consequences of their sin. That if you sin, this is going to happen. I want to sin. I really love my sin. I enjoy doing what I want to do instead of what God wants me to do. And even the Bible says there is pleasure in sin for a season. So, preacher says, God wants to save you from your sin. So I'm kind of partial to my sin. I kind of like it. Now, if you could figure it out where I could keep on doing all this stuff I want to do, and I wouldn't be punished for it, he says, now, then you would have something. And a lot of people think that being saved means God saving you from the consequences of your sin. In other words, Jesus died on the cross so that nothing bad or wrong will ever happen to you. He didn't do that. That is not what salvation is. Now here's the other one. Salvation is not being saved from the devil. I wish John Milton had never written his poem Paradise Lost. Most Christian theology about the devil and about heaven and hell and about Genesis and the Garden of Eden comes from John Milton's poem instead of from the Bible. It pictured the devil as, the devil actually in Paradise Lost said, I'd rather rule in hell than serve in heaven. The devil's not ruling in hell. The devil, the last chapters of the Bible talks about when the devil is going to be thrown into hell. The devil's not sitting in hell right now on a throne in charge of hell. Hell is a place of torment and judgment. And the devil has never been in hell. He is not in hell. He's not fond of fire. You know what the devil is fond of? Light. He's fond of luminescence. Do you know what his original name was? Lucifer. The shining one. Light. Glorious. Like Christmas tree light. Light, shining brightness. But not fire. We hear about, well, he sold his soul to the devil. What in the world would the devil want with your soul? Is he collecting souls? Does he want people to come and go to hell with him? Is that his goal in life, is collecting lost people? The devil doesn't have to do anything for people to be lost. You know what people are? They're lost. They don't need the devil to make them lost. The devil doesn't own your soul to make you go to hell. We're born going to hell. The devil doesn't have to work on lost people to get them to go to hell. Jesus said, this is the way to get into heaven. This is the way to get into hell. He says, broad. It's wide open. The path that leadeth to destruction. He says, and Jesus said, there's a lot of folks on the road. It's a wide road. And it's a lot of people are going. He said, the devil don't have to work up a sweat to get that going. He don't have to work on people to get them. You don't have to get in a fiddling contest with the devil. I always thought his fiddling in that song was kind of crummy anyway. He didn't play Sally Gooden or chicken in the bread pan picking out dough. This kind of sound like, I want to say, Charlie, what is all that racket you made supposed to be the devil playing? Yeah, he lost. There wasn't no doubt about it. But Johnny lied to him and said, well, you're pretty good, old son, but sit right, no, you're not pretty good. It's awful. There's no way to play the fiddle. But the devil says he was kind of getting behind and his soul gathered, and he was looking to make a deal. He don't want your soul. He don't care nothing about you, me. It's God. Being saved is not being saved from the devil. Being saved is not being saved from hell. Let me say something. I'm going to say one more thing about the devil. Do you know there are 16 chapters in the book of Romans? And in Romans 16, the last chapter, verse 20, Paul uses the word Satan. That's the only time he refers to the devil or Satan in the whole book of Romans. But the book of Romans is about being saved. It has nothing whatsoever to do with Satan. He's closing the letter, a few final things, and he says, very soon the Lord is going to bruise Satan. He's going to bring everything to a close. He's talking about the end of time, the end of Judgment Day. But all the technical understanding about being saved is not about the devil. So you know what's going on. That's the last thing I want to say about the devil tonight. As far as Gump used to say, that's all I'm going to say about that. He doesn't mention hell a single time. Hell, the word hell does not appear in the book of Romans anywhere. It's about being saved from God. Let's close by looking at a verse. And if you would, go over to Matthew chapter 10, verse 28. Matthew 10, 28. When people die, they're not going to stand before the devil. When people on Judgment Day are going to stand before God. And the question is, are you saved from him or not? Jonathan Edwards was a very famous New England preacher in Rhode Island. He wrote a sermon that endures till today, several pages long. Sinners in the hands of an angry God. That's what salvation, that's what not being saved is. It's sinners in the hands of an angry God. Let's look, Jesus said, Jesus is talking about, y'all are afraid of all this. You're kind of scared of that. You're worried about this and that. He said, let me tell you something. Verse 28. Fear not them which kill the body, but are not able to kill the soul. But rather fear him who is able to destroy both soul and body in hell. The Bible never says that the devil is ever able to take anybody to hell or send anybody to hell or that he's in charge of hell. But if you look over the book of Revelation, you'll see who's casting people into hell, and it is the angels of God. Jesus said, let me tell you, you want to be scared of somebody, be scared of God. When Noah and his wife and his 3 sons and his 3 daughters-in-law were in the ark, and there was floating on the ark with all of those animals, and the storms were raging outside, and the ark was rising, and the people outside were drowning by the millions. They knew what was outside of the ark was God. And they were being saved. Not from the water. They were being saved from the wrath of God. Oh, he's a wonderful, loving, kind, gracious God. But we need to understand that he's the one we're doing business with. All these others are just minor players. They're just pieces and parts. It all has to do with what your relationship, and that's really what Paul is saying here in these introductory remarks. Salvation has to do with you and God, no, not anything else, not anyone else. You and God. What is your relationship with God? That's what salvation is. It's encapsulated. We want to append so many other things and attach other things to it. Paul says, notice, before we start, he says, this is about God has pronounced judgment upon all mankind, the unrighteousness of men. And I want to tell you about how you can get on God's good side because he's the one who saved you from himself. You know, this is not completely foreign or something that we have never been acquainted with. And it's why it rang true for me, because I knew how much my mom and daddy loved me when I was a kid. And I was growing up. And I knew rules and regulations and laws. remember one time, I don't know why, I guess it's because of Daniel Boone. Daniel Boone, Davy Crockett. We were always wanting to go somewhere and build a fort. Build a fort. Did you do that when you were young? Girls wanted to play house. And I remember being lured out into in areas where you could kind of walk out into a clearing. Terry and them had a little place back there in the back of theirs. I could go back there and little couches and chairs and teacups. And they were already plotting and planning for playing house. Little boys didn't have a clue about that, man. They're already thinking about playing house. That's why women think that they know about playing house more than you do. They've been playing house all their life. We build forts. We could make a fort out of that. My good friend said, I know where we could get some poles that look just exactly like Daniel Boone's fort poles. I don't know why, but behind his house there was a field. It was just a huge empty field. And it just had just hundreds of fence posts, pine. They were coated with creosote. They're about that big around. And they were just stuck down in the ground. And there wasn't anything attached to them. Here and then about 4 or 6 feet. And they were just about as far as you could see. And he thought, man, nobody's using them. They've been there for a long time. I don't think anybody even remembers that they're there. And we thought we'd use those to build a fort with because it looked just like what you'd make a fort out of. We couldn't get them out of the ground. But my friend said, I got an axe. And so every day after school for I don't know how long, I mean, it was like a job. It was like, manifest destiny. Or, it was like, this was important. And we were dedicated. We'd go down there and we'd take time about chopping on those fence posts until we got them down. And we were putting them up in a pretty good pile. We had a pretty good pile of posts that we'd chopped down. Started bringing our lunch. Till one day we heard, hey! That was an older man. He was coming across the field. He was coming toward us. My friend said, quick, let's go. Well, he's the one who convinced me that this wasn't anything wrong in the first place. He wasn't talking to me. Oh, who cares? Nobody cares. So he said, let's go, let's run. Now I'm thinking, where are you going to run to? Run home? He's coming right here. See him run. Going to run home? What if you don't run home? What if you run over there? I'm just thinking. I didn't say all this. I was like 9, 10 years old. I didn't know that man. He didn't look mean. I wasn't afraid of him. I wasn't scared of him. He had a little boy with him. He's come out there. I think he'd been out there. I'd like to have been there. Harry, do you know what I found out in the field this afternoon? Somebody's been chopping down their fence post. What? Yeah, there's probably a dozen of them that's been chopped off. There's a post sticking up out of the ground, and there's a big pile of somebody's been chopping them down with an axe. Nice. And he just figured, well, I'll just go out there and keep a watch, and I'll find them and see, hey, there it comes. Let's run. I said, oh man, why? I don't know why. He was the leader. And when I was a little boy, I was not a leader. That's maybe what changed my mind. But I put my foot down and I said, no. And if he'd run off, I wouldn't run off. But if for some reason or other, against his better judgment, he stayed. What are you boys doing? Building a fort? Building a fort. Where y'all live? You see, that's what my brain, my mind was thinking about running or whatever. It was very obvious that we lived around there somewhere. I wasn't a detective, and wasn't wise in the ways of the world. But something in my mind says, he ain't going to have no trouble finding you at all if you run off. Where are you going to go, Africa? You're going to go to China or something? You're going to run, where are you going to run off to? You're going to run home? You live right there. I could see my house and where he's at. I could see his house was even closer. He lived right back up to that property, and right across the road was where I lived. And if this old man didn't know nothing about our neighborhood, if he walked out, the first two houses he'd see was his house and my house. Do you know who lived at my house? My mom and daddy. My mom and daddy. Now, I didn't know that man from anything. And I wouldn't have been afraid of him. But I said, you know, this might not have been a good idea. That old man wasn't mad. I think he's probably still thinking, this is the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life. I've never seen anything like this in my life. So where y'all live? I said, right over there. Right over there. Well, let's go talk to your mom and daddy. And however bad that was, if I'd run off and maybe I was back in my bedroom and my daddy came back here and said, son, there's a man just come up here knocking on the door. And he said someone's been cutting down his fence post. You know anything about that? I'm thinking, I don't want my daddy to find out that away. You know what? I don't know. Things are different now. I think my kids, they always knew that I loved them. They still do. They're still, even though they're grown up now, they're still a little bit afraid of me. And that's good. That's good. I've been trying to scare my granddaughter since the day they was born. They ain't having a bit of it. They ain't working a bit. I've been going, ooh, yeah, it is. Be quiet, Pops. Stop it, Pops. Say, I'm going to get you. And they say, no, you ain't. So that's hopeless. But all I got to do is look at my son or my daughter and just kind of give them the stink eye a little bit. They still a little bit afraid of me. I was afraid of my mom and dad. I knew they loved me, and I loved them. And I didn't know. I didn't afraid of what that man might get me arrested or whatever. But all I could ever think of my whole life is, what if my daddy and mama finds out about this? And I'd rather tell them than have somebody else tell them. Because I knew that I wasn't going to need to be in front of the police or the neighbors or the bullies. I wasn't afraid of anybody. I was afraid of my mom and daddy, and I loved them. There wasn't anything wrong with that kind of fear. And if you had anything like that, then maybe you know what I'm talking about. I felt like I had wonderful parents. But I wasn't scared of anybody. But there were a lot of times when someone says, hey, let's do this. And I'd say, my daddy would kill me if I did that. Well, he won't never know. You'd be surprised what daddies and mamas know. I remember a few days later, Daddy pulling up. He had a big old car. Sticking out of the back end of the trunk of his car was about 15 or 20 creosote fence posts and a post hole digger. And me and my buddy had an appointment, and we went out there. Daddy pulled his car out there in that field, and till dark that night, we dug up them old chopped off posts and we put in brand new posts there. Let me tell you something too. This ain't got nothing to do with it. That man never did string any barbed wire and nothing on them fence posts. He just let them stick up out of the ground. And if you went there today, I guarantee you there ain't nothing in that field, not a thing. And I bet you there ain't no fence post either. That don't give you a right, however, to go chop them down and build a Daniel Boone fort. I knew that getting that right didn't mean fence posts were sticking back out of the ground. That's not right. That ain't got nothing to do with making this right. I didn't even worry about that old man sitting back there. He washed what he washed every minute. He didn't help. But I never did look at him where he'd say, all right, I'm satisfied. I didn't care about that. I didn't care if he was satisfied. Never did bother me that he was made unhappy or that I had wasted some of his money or something like that. I didn't care anything at all. It didn't. I can tell you that my friend talked me into that. But it wasn't all his idea. I can't blame him for that. But I remember my daddy putting the last one on the ground, tamping the dirt around it. He said, all right. Okay. And he looked at the old man. He said, okay. The old man said, all right, it's fine. No problem. Dad said, all right, let's go, boys. He didn't whip me. He didn't holler at me. I don't have any idea how much a fence post cost even today. I imagine it's probably $2 or $3 a piece back then. A long time ago. I don't know. I remember my dad, we got back home, we were washing up. He said, son, did you learn anything? I said, yeah, Daddy, I did. I don't need a fork. I do not need a fork. He said, all right. Try to give things a little more thought in the future. That's strange for my dad. I've seen my dad get mad and angry, and I've had my dad wear me out before, but I think he was treating me like a grown-up, and I'll never forget that story. I hope you never do. And my salvation story is about me and God, and being right with Him, and Him not being mad anymore, or Him not being mad at all. You're saying, okay, and I know that it doesn't matter about all the different things that I might be able to fix or not fix or change or undo or turn over, but to be able to stand before Him one day and God say, look at Jesus, and say, all right, we're good. We're good. It's all been paid for. It's all been fixed. I fixed it. We're good. I wish I had thought to say, Daddy, the devil made me do this. The devil made me build this fort. Could have said to my friend. That's long before I ever became a Christian. And God is already teaching me things important to know. Well, I hope you have a good week. I hope you have a good week, and I hope God bless you. We've got some sick folks. We've got some folks been traveling and doing.